Welcome back to another video on the 20 long. Been dealing with some green hair algae issues in the tank and stepping up the maintenance on it quite a bit. Here you can see the bag that I keep the pond matrix in. The left hand side is the bag dirty and the right hand side is the bag that it's supposed to look like when it's clean. You can see here there's green hair algae on the lock line, the return nozzle, on the frag plugs. It's gotten out of control a little bit. And on various pieces of the rock work, you can see that the algae's gotten pretty bad. Basically, what I end up doing is pulling the rocks out and scrubbing them real good, and stepping up the water changes. So I basically think that this is happening without the feeding ring. Whenever I was putting food into the tank, it was going everywhere, and only a small percentage of the food was getting consumed by the fish. And I think that it was just getting stuck into the tank. And of course, you know, whenever you have excessive fish food, you're going to have phosphates. This is actually not green hair algae. This is the chaeto from the first chamber that has made its way over to the return chamber. So that's something else that I need to address before it completely stops the return pump from working. I don't really have any way to mechanically filter the water, so I have been putting some pads over top of the pond matrix to try to help keep the chaeto from moving over into the return chamber. You can see also in here that I did trim the chaeto quite a bit, and you can see the junk that is settled in the bottom of the chamber there, and I need to get it cleaned out. I haven't tested the tank for phosphates, but I know that they're present since there is green hair algae throughout the tank, and it hasn't gotten completely out of control. I'm probably exaggerating just a little bit, but it is at a point where I need to address it now instead of letting it go. Trimming the chaeto as much as I did may have had an ill effect as well. I'm not really sure. You know, with such a smaller compact ball of chaeto now, it's not absorbing as many nutrients. I did test the tank for nitrates, and there were no detectable nitrates in the water. When I had the cube set up, I was using a clamp-on light with an LED bulb. Whenever I set up this 20-gallon, I bought the JBJ Nano Glow Refugium light, and overall I've been happy with it. It takes up a very small footprint. You can see the magnet inside of the tank there, and then of course the light's on the outside of the tank, and it's a really bright light. Now, I know a lot of people like to use red spectrum whenever they're growing different algae and whatnot, but for chaeto I had great growth with the LED bulb. And I also finally got the Santa Monica Drop.2 algae scrubber installed in the tank. It's been in the tank for a couple weeks now, and I haven't seen any growth yet. I'm running the LED light inside the box for 20 hours and off for 4, which was what was suggested by Santa Monica. This particular algae scrubber requires an air pump, so you can see that there in the middle of the screen. Then I have a timer set up for the LED. So basically the air pump just draws water through the scrubber itself. Here's some gel filter shots of some coral. You can see the blues are pretty heavy, so there's some zoas in the acan, and overall the coral's doing fine, minus the green hair algae that I'm fixing to work on. Along with the trimming the chaeto, adding the algae scrubber, and doing some heavy water changes, the best solution that I've come up with is removing the rock out of the tank and scrubbing the rock in some tank water to get the algae off of it. Now, most of the rock in the tank doesn't have any coral glued to it, so I could easily remove the rock from the tank and scrub it without having to disturb any of the pieces of coral that are inside the tank. I'm probably going to also address the filters inside of my RODI here pretty soon. There's a very good chance that that is also a suspect as far as why I have phosphates in my water column. My TDS meter on the RODI unit says that there's 0 TDS coming out, but I really think it's time for me to pick up the carbon sediment blocks and go ahead and replace them. And you can see the bottom of the tank here that it's empty. I need to siphon all of this stuff out and get it out of the tank, and that could also be attributing to my phosphate levels. I haven't actually tested the tank for phosphates. I know that they're present with the algae, and I don't actually have a phosphate tester. There's really no point in me buying a phosphate tester at the moment because I know that they're present, and from the research that I've done, if there's algae in the water, on the rock and in the water itself, a phosphate test isn't really going to do me any good anyway, because it's probably going to read 0 or close to 0, just because the algae is going to be consuming anything that's in the water column. So I will eventually pick up a phosphate test, but for the time being, I know that they're present since I have algae in the tank. I've cut back on the feeding, and I'm exclusively using the feeding ring whenever I'm feeding dry pellets. Now, whenever I feed frozen, I've cut it back to a half a cube instead of a whole cube. Since my fish load, I have 3 fish. There's no reason that they should be getting a whole cube. So you kind of live and learn, and have to take the good with the bad. And luckily, the green hair algae hasn't gotten completely out of control. Now, it does bother me, and I wish that it wasn't there. But, you know, in the end, it is there, so I just need to figure out why it's there and get rid of it. I am using Marco rock, and you could read back, and a couple years ago, people said that this rock did leach phosphates, and it very well may leach phosphates. But I did acid bath this rock before I even put it into the cube, so that should have removed any question about what this rock was going to leach into the water column. So I'm going to attribute it to a couple things, and that's going to be my RODI filters, and then the excessive feedings, because I'm keeping up with my water changes. I am not running a skimmer on the tank currently, so that could very well be a possibility as well, but I'm not going to say that that's the end-all be-all, because there are a lot of tanks that are growing rapidly that are skimmerless. And I am doing the best that I can to mechanically filter or mechanically clean the water, but in this particular setup, it's very hard for me to put any type of padding in the sump section of this tank and have it actually stay in place and catch all the dirty stuff out of the tank so that I can remove it. So I do miss, you know, whenever I had the cube in the sump, it had a filter sock in it, and I do miss being able to simply pull this filter sock out, rinse it off, and then throw it back into the tank, because I felt like the filter sock actually caught a lot. The other thing that I have slacked on is cleaning the sump section out of this tank. At the beginning of the video, you could see the bag that I had the pond matrix in. I mean, it was yellow or almost brown. I did end up removing the bag out of the tank. I dumped the pond matrix in a bucket of tank water, and I did rinse the bag under the sink, and I did clean it out. So here you can see the dirty water from me scrubbing the rock. That's also from me siphoning out the bottom of the tank. It kind of opens your eyes to what is really on the bottom of a tank whenever you're running a tank with sand, because you can't see what's on top of the sand for the most part. And here you can see that the bag has been cleaned and put back into the tank. The algae scrubber sitting on top of it. I hope that the light doesn't affect it. The little ball of Chaeto, and I did siphon out the as much of the debris underneath the Chaeto as I could, and now it's going to be time to fill the tank back up and get some movement going. I did move the power head. You can see it in the left-hand corner a couple weeks ago. I don't know if maybe this has something to do with the algae. I think maybe I need to move it again, but I'm probably just going to leave it be and try to figure out exactly what's going on. As mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure it's the filters in the RODI unit, so I really need to figure out the quality of water that I have. So I'll probably buy a handheld TDS meter just to verify that I am getting 0 TDS. And then the feedings, once again, you know, I only have 3 fish, so there's really no reason for me to be dropping a lot of food into this tank, because the 3 fish that are in there, they do eat a lot, but, you know, I shouldn't be overfeeding them, and which is going to be the reason why I have the algae that I have. While this is filling up the rest of the way, I figured I might as well go ahead and mention that I did order my new tank stand and sump last week, a couple weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks now. I am waiting to take delivery of the tank. I haven't heard from the carrier yet. I'm really hoping that it's coming next week, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'm in no rush to get it, so I still have to get some equipment and whatnot for it, but I'm excited to have it on its way. This is just the bucket after the water change and scrubbing the rock. You can see how filthy it is, and there is some pond matrix down at the bottom of the bucket, and there's a couple frag plugs that ended up not having any coral on them that I just had in the tank. So I did take them out of the tank. But yeah, I'm excited about the new tank. Can't wait to get it in. I think it's gonna fit me perfect. It's still classified as I would classify it as a nano tank, but it's going to give me a lot more options. And I do miss having a sump. I really like all-in-one tanks, but I do miss having a sump, and I'll have a sump again here very soon. You can see here that the rocks look a lot better without all the algae floating around on them. I did throw in the Hydor Slim Skim skimmer. I ended up removing it from the tank. I decided that I wanted to have the Chaeto in the tank instead of the skimmer. But I ran the skimmer for about a week, and it actually worked very well. I wish that I could run both the Chaeto and the skimmer, but I really just want to run the Chaeto and figure out what the phosphate issue is in the tank. So for a week, I mean, it did pull out a lot of gunk, but ultimately I did end up removing the skimmer from the system just because I'm going to want Chaeto in the new tank, and I wanted to go ahead and keep growing the Chaeto in my current system instead of having to buy some more a couple months later down the road whenever I have the new tank set up. But overall, I was impressed with the skimmer. The only downfall was I was not able to put the lid over the sump area, and I did quickly notice that the evaporation level was higher, and I actually ran out my bucket, my auto top-off bucket was pumping dry one day, and luckily I just happened to be home. When I was running the tank with the top over the sump area, I was getting about 3.5 gallons of evaporation. So whenever I removed it, it actually pumped out 5 gallons in a week as far as evaporation was concerned, which is why the bucket ran dry. I'd never consumed 5 gallons of fresh water before, so the 5-gallon bucket has served me well up until this point. So I would attribute that to more surface agitation there in the sump area, which means that you're going to get more evaporation. While I ran the skimmer, it was more of a wet skim, so about every day I was dumping the collection cup out. So therein lies some of the evaporation issues, but that'll be the end of this video, folks. I appreciate you watching. Thanks for all my new subscribers. Stay tuned. Hopefully the new tank will be here next week, and I can get started on that process over the next couple months. It should be a good winter build for me. Appreciate you watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe.